Let's talk about the latest moves from the Seahawks. We've got players coming, players going. We got contract extensions, all sorts of stuff that we need to talk about as the season continues to ramp up. What's happening, everybody? Christian Pedersen back with another episode of Seahawks Digest, the show that is excited to have you talking about like veteran players coming in for workouts, guys getting cut, all of that. Infinitely more exciting than the doldrums of this offseason. So I'm stoked to have football back. I'm stoked to have you guys here. If you are new, like, subscribe, comment, share are all YouTube buttons that I tell you to press in the first couple minutes of every episode. Before we get to the headlines, like I said, we're going to break down one edition, one audition, and one spending edition on this episode. First thing we've got to get to is the Seahawks, after waiving Kenny McIntosh, adding some depth back to the wide receiver conversation with Kyre Duplessis. The story on this young man is pretty straightforward. Basically, a rookie free agent, spent brief time with Detroit this offseason, played at Delaware. Look, I think that it's no move too small to be insignificant when you are discussing the ability to put together a full championship team. And so I've said it about when we just did a video on Torrey Horton getting healthy and how Cooper Cupp has been looking at the depth at the wide receiver position is an interesting, it is top heavy in terms of JSN is very, very much the guy and talented and generational, all that. But it's looking like the rest of the wide receiver core could be pretty lethal at all just being available for Sam Darnold to have somebody, whether it's deep with Sheed, underneath with Cupp, or somewhere in between with guys like this. If Duplessis makes the team, makes 5 catches, maybe he's not somebody who you go pick up on the fantasy waiver wire, but this I think is an interestingly positive move in the cold-hearted bottom line-ness of football. Kenny McIntosh just not getting healthy. This guy, healthy. So in and of itself right there is, I would say, at the bare minimums, a net positive. Let's talked about an audition coming up on this one as we'll pull up the graphic here. How do you feel about Donovan Wilson in the building to be working out with the Seahawks? I think it is an uncomfortable reality of talking about the Nick Eamon-Worry on the PUP list discussion. He is, as of right now, not being talked about missing any of the season, and that he's just getting healthy for the season and that they like where he's at. But talking about the status being unclear and then having guys in the building to audition to play that position, what's your level of concern here? 1 out of 10, 10 out of 10, somewhere in the middle. I would say that I'm like on the surface of 1 out of 10, just being like, we know it's a long season. We don't need him back week 1. But given that there's been the full off season for Eamon-Worry to get healthy, and that if he's not healthy at all to be doing any degree of football right now, I have some concern about that. And I don't want to snowball into, oh man, the Seahawks are falling apart and all that. But to have a guy coming in to be looking at filling that position, I think is an interesting conversation. Be talking about that the coaches, you could say they're covering their bases, but they're covering their bases in a way that they know that they need to, and that it's not just that he's resting up for a week or two. So it's going to now be an interesting discussion to watch all season. That being said, so far, recent history has indicated good success at picking up former Cowboys to turn into stars here and have them be able to still perform at a high level. And I am fine with if we do have to fill Eamon-Worry's position, at least at the base level, because maybe not capable of finding anybody to truly be the Swiss Army knife that Coach Macdonald had talked about, wanting to put Eamon-Worry in all these different positions. But a guy like this, I totally am fine taking a flyer on a veteran to come fill a gig for a couple of weeks, in the sense that, maybe what's missing in terms of the athleticism and explosiveness that they had a couple of years ago, they now make up for in field vision and presence and ability to read defenses and plug and play pretty quickly, because you've done this a lot. And this isn't your first training camp. And so shot on a rookie, shot on a veteran, I'm fine taking the shot on the veteran. Next one that we got to talk about, like I said, we got contract negotiations. Leonard Williams, who is in the final year of his deal, has confirmed that the Seahawks and him have had discussions. The quote that was given, I'll pull this one full screen for you here, that there have been a few conversations, but nothing set in stone, he said earlier this week. We're focused on the season starting now, and we know that that's towards the end of the season. We have time to figure out where that time comes. Okay. I guess with the cap situation being that the Seahawks have, call it somewhere between 15 and 20 million, depending on how much you really want to say that they get into the nitty gritty of like spending on medical players and practice squad and whatnot, but call it 17 to 20. That they've got the ability to have conversations with guys right now and adjust contracts and get stuff done. They have currently talked to Devon Witherspoon about making him potentially the highest paid cornerback. Leonard Williams is another big one. I just am always curious in a salary capped sport about where you draw the line. And I'm not saying that I don't want Leonard Williams back. I'm not saying let him walk. I'm not saying lowball him. I'm not saying don't make him the highest. Like if you want to pay him $1 billion, cool, great. I'm just with the need to be realistic that at some point, most of these dynasties, or just call them overarchingly, consistently successful franchises, have to make the occasionally unpopular move of just saying, hey, like, that's a guy who can still get it done in big ways, but we just have other needs than what allows us to be able to address him also wanting the league commensurate amount of back that he's getting. And I think it's going to be really interesting to watch and see if there isn't some, I'm waiting for this side to blink on that, and who's going to really have what money. We got Sam Darnold coming up soon enough. We've got other players that are coming off. So it is an ebb and flow that every season there's some give and take to this, and it's not singularly that this contract is going to decide everything, but with ongoing conversations and negotiations about a couple of high-priced guys, I think it's at least something that is worth paying some basic attention to. That's what I got for you. 3 stories today on the Seahawks, under 10 minutes. Daily content, like I said, coming out all year long. Extra quality content now that there's actual football to talk about. Till next time, like, subscribe, comment, share. Talk to you guys soon.